Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am really excited for today's video. I am talking about one of my favorite subjects, well, reading obviously, but and specifically how to read more. I like to read a lot of books, and I know a lot of people are always trying to figure out better ways that they can read more. And so I'm really excited to share some tips and tricks that I have learned and that helped me to read as much as I want to throughout the year. I'm also going to be doing the reading habits tag that I think was made by Ariel Bissett. I'll try to find her video and put that in the description if you're interested in watching that as well. I'm going to have all of the questions in the description box, and I'm also going to use these questions as a spin-off on some of my tips and tricks that I use. I will say that if you're somebody who reads 100 books and you want to read 200 books a year, this might not be super helpful, although it could be. It could very well be that I do some things that you don't and that you might think that those will be really helpful for you, which in that case, fabulous. But this is a little bit more targeted to people who may read 12 books a year and they want to read 25, or somebody who reads 30 books a year and they want to read 50 books. Or if you read 50 books and you want to get to 100 books a year, hopefully you'll learn some things in this video that will help you to achieve that goal. So without further ado, I'm going to get started and talk through the questions for the reading habits tag first. So the first question is, do you have a certain place at home for reading? And for me at home, I either read in my bed or in my comfy chair. Also, it's not technically my chair, it belongs to my sister, but she moved out, so it's mine now. The next question, bookmark or random piece of paper? And I'm either or, you know, it doesn't really matter to me. There are some times where I'm going to pick up my next book and I'll automatically go to my little cup of bookmarks here and select a specific bookmark. Like, hold one second. I sometimes, not all the time, try to match my bookmark to the book, and so I'm reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue right now, and the bookmark I selected is this leather bookmark from Iceland that my sister brought back for me, and I just kind of felt like, as far as the bookmarks that I own, that it kind of matched the story. Kind of, who knows? Currently, if you're interested in knowing what my favorite bookmarks are, definitely the one that I just showed you. And then this tie-dye bookmark that's kind of opaque. I actually made this bookmark. Bookmark was made by just taking like a clear piece of plastic and coloring it with Sharpie markers, and then you just dilute it with rubbing alcohol and then leave it to dry, and it gives you a cool tie-dye effect. So my favorite bookmarks at the moment. But as to the question at hand, sometimes, you know, I do pick up a specific bookmark, but usually I'm too lazy, so I'm either like in my chair, which is across the room, and I don't feel like going to pick up a bookmark, so I'll either dog-ear the page or find something, like any inanimate object, to put in the book until I feel like getting up. Either or, whatever. The next question, can you just stop reading, or do you have to stop after a chapter or a certain amount of pages? I honestly stop reading whenever. If a book has very short chapters, I'm more likely to stop at the end of a chapter. But honestly, I could just stop in the middle of a page, in the middle of a paragraph, in the middle of a sentence. It does not matter to me. Like, I read so often that it doesn't hurt me to just stop randomly, so I just stop when I need to stop. The next question, do you eat or drink while reading? And sure, funny story, okay? You know, so I work at the library, And there was one time where I was walking through the stacks and a customer comes up to me and she was like, "That person over there is eating a bag of chips while reading a library book." And I was just like, eating snacks is allowed in the library, you know, like you can't have a slice of pizza, but something that we sell in our vending machine, you're allowed to eat in the library. And she's like, "But aren't you worried that it's going to make a mess in the book?" I'm just like, lady, please. A bag of chips is the least of your worries. I mean, obviously, if I'm reading a library book, I'm not going to eat a bowl of soup right over top of the book. But yeah, eating, drinking during, whatever, I don't care. If you are somebody who's very messy eater, but you still want to read and eat at the same time, to read an ebook on your phone or listen to an audiobook at the same time. So those are helpful too. The next question is multitasking, music or TV while reading. And music without lyrics I can listen to, it's completely fine. Or music with lyrics, if it's like completely new music to me that I've never heard before and I put the volume down really low, I can do that. I actually just started listening to Hayley Williams' new album, and it's so like mellow and low-key that I turned the volume down really low, and it's like the perfect reading music for me right now. As for TV, I cannot watch TV and read at the same time. There are very, very few occasions. If I have something on the TV that I've seen a million times, like Gilmore Girls, for example, and I'm already invested in a book, and I'm really, really focused on the book because it's so good and I can't put it down, that is the rare occasion that I can read and watch TV at the same time. But also, I am trying to limit that kind of thing. Multitasking in general is not good for you. Like, you're more productive when you're single tasking. I actually read an article like a week or so ago about how multitasking is addicting, and this was specifically work related, but it's addicting, and then like the more you do it, the more you want to do it, and the less productive you are. Multitasking is not good for you. It's not good for your brain, and it causes burnout faster. So I've been trying to not multitask. Like, if I'm watching TV and I want to watch TV, I'm only watching TV. If I'm watching TV and I pick up my phone because I don't feel like what's on the TV, I'm going to turn the TV off. So this is a new goal for me, and I think it's very helpful. And the next question is reading one book at a time or multiple, and I'm always reading multiple books at once. I feel like this might contradict what I just said about multitasking, but I'm obviously not trying to read them at the same time, you know, like this time is dedicated to this book and that time is dedicated to the other. So for my work book club, I'm trying only to read it during work, because if I'm doing it for work, I should be getting paid for it, you know? And then I always try to have a physical book and an ebook that I'm reading. If I have like a doctor's appointment, I like to have an ebook with me because sometimes I can't bring a giant like 700-page book with me everywhere, you know? So having an ebook is really important to me so I can read during those small wait times. Also, sometimes we'll try to add an audiobook on top of that. I'm not always in the mood to listen to an audiobook, so I don't listen to them as often as I could. I know a lot of people say that, or like they ask me how I can keep up with those types of things. And I get that it might be hard for some people to differentiate between specific things and whatnot, but for me, it's not hard at all. But I can understand how it might be difficult for other people. But if you are looking to read more, it's something that I suggest to try to read multiple books at one time. So for example, maybe when you're at home, you read this book, and then when you are driving to work, so on your commute, you listen to another book, and then on your lunch break, since you didn't bring your physical book with you to work, you read this ebook. So things like that I feel like are a great way to start reading more. Question number 7, reading at home or everywhere? And I pretty much read everywhere. Yes, it's definitely easier to read at home when you are in control of things that could distract you. So I definitely read more at home. But if I'm waiting, like in a waiting room, I would prefer to be reading a book rather than scrolling on Instagram, you know? Instagram account that I think is very inspirational if you're trying to find more time to read is What Carrie Reads, and I'll try to put her handle and a link to her page in the description box, but she often like will in her stories talk about when she finds time to read, and like things like in the school pickup line or when she's waiting for curbside pickup or things like that. So definitely a great account to follow if you're looking for inspiration on how to read more. Next question is, do you read out loud or silently in your head? Which I think is a very strange question to ask anyone who's not a kindergarten teacher. No, I don't just sit at home and read out loud to me. I'm not trying to be mean or judgmental about this question. I just think it's strange. The next question is, do you read ahead or skip pages? And oh my God, I did this so much when I was younger. When I was in like middle school and high school, I would oftentimes skip to the end so I could know what would happen. And I mean, it didn't inhibit me from reading the book. Like, no matter what the ending was, I always finished the book. It was just something that, like, I don't know, like my brain was like, this is happening too slow. I need to know what happens. The last time I did this was for my last book club because I knew I wasn't going to finish the book before I had to, you know, lead the discussion. So I read the last chapter just to make sure I had a concluding thought to it. So that was probably the one time in years that I've done that. The next question I know is going to bug a lot of readers. Breaking the spine or keeping it new? Break that spine. I really don't understand why people need to keep their books in pristine condition. I mean, I get like for certain books like these that are like leather bound, they're meant to look nice, so you can't really crack those spines, but you know, I would be more gentle with those books. But like if I'm buying a paperback, to me, if I went to somebody's house and I didn't know them, you know, like I didn't know anything about them, and I looked at their bookcases and all of their books looked like they've never been touched, I'd probably assume that they'd never been touched and were just for show, you know? Like, to me, a book does not become yours until you put your mark on it. For me, when I look at my bookshelves and I notice like some cracked spines or some, not torn covers, but like a little like messed up books, that to me looks like a well-loved book, and I love to see that, which is also why I like to buy books used. So I'm definitely not in the party of keeping books pristine, and I never will be. And I don't trust you if you are. I'm just kidding. I find it baffling. And then the last question for the tag, do you write in your book? So I guess this goes into the same vein as the last one. And sometimes I do. I do like to annotate sometimes, and I try to do that mostly through underlining or highlighting, but I do want to get into annotating more. So now that you know my opinions about tearing into books, I want to get into some tips and tricks that I do and that I've learned to do in order to read more. Like I said, if you are somebody who is just trying to read more and you want to learn more about how to do that, that's great. First thing I really want to state is to make reading a priority. You know, in my profession, in my work as a librarian, and also when I was a bookseller at Barnes & Noble, I'd hear people all the time say things like, I don't have time to read. I'm just like, I'm pretty sure you do. If you're a single parent who is working 3 jobs, I understand it completely if you say that you don't have time to read. I mean, I still feel like you do have time. There are places that you can find time to read if you really wanted to, but I think it's very rare that people actually don't have the time to read. I think what comes down to it is making reading a priority. So to me, I would rather read than watch TV. How often do you spend scrolling through social media? How long do you spend playing games on your phone? It's just like a lot of people, I would say the majority of people, are really connected to their phone, and the time to read is going to be the time not to play with your phone, you know? And then my next tip would be to take a book everywhere with you, and this is how I do it. So like I was saying earlier, I always have a physical book, I always have an ebook, and sometimes I also always will have an audiobook along with like my workbook. So I always have a book with me no matter what. Like if you have your phone with you all the time, you always have a book with you. Download the Kindle app, or don't, because Amazon is terrible. Download the Nook app, or you can use library apps like Libby, Overdrive, Cloud Library, Hoopla. Read everywhere. And so always have a book on you, and you'll find that you have time. Another tip, which might sound counterproductive, but stop reading bad books. DNF. Don't finish a book if you're not liking it and you think like, well, how am I going to read more if I'm quitting every book? You can still count those books on your Goodreads challenge. I mean, if I read over 50% of a book, I'm going to count it in my Goodreads challenge anyway, because it stole time from me, so I'm going to count it. But also, helping or learning what books you don't like will help you find better books that you do like, which will help you read faster or more. So stop reading those bad books. Don't waste your time on them. If you're not into it within 100 pages, put it down. And it could also be that you're not into it right now and you find time for it later, which is fine. So stop, put it down. I recently terribly did not put a book down when I really didn't like it. And that'll haunt me for the rest of the day. This also, this next tip kind of is in the same vein as making reading your priority, and that's to set an intention to form a habit. So maybe you'll decide that you want to read an hour before bed every day. For me, that looks like turning the TV off 3 hours before I plan to go to bed to get things done, and then to have an hour dedicated to reading before bed. So that's a great way to do things. You could also just set an intention for, if you want to read 30 minutes a day, 3 10-minute chunks is a lot easier to do than trying to find one solid block of 30 minutes. So 10 minutes before you get ready for work, 10 minutes during your lunch break, 10 minutes before you go to bed. So setting an intention to form these habits is something that will really help you. Try to carve out time in your day. You know when you have time, you do. The next thing that could help you read more is to join a book club or a buddy read. Reading with other people will keep you accountable and help you read more. Having that accountability and somebody also on the same journey with you will really help you to keep reading. This is something that I find really helps me. A lot of the times when I finish a book, I'm kind of just like, man, I don't know what I want to read next, and I put it off to the next day to decide. And then I put it off for the next day, and then the next day. So instead, I try to either have a dedicated TBR every month, or as soon as I finish a book, if I am at home and able to do it, I'm immediately going to find the book that I want to read next, grab it off my shelf, grab the bookmark with it, put it next to my bed, on my nightstand, on my desk, wherever, so I know this is the next book that I'm going to read, so I don't have to spend 3 weeks trying to figure out what book I want to read next. Another tip, which will be something that takes you a while to incorporate, is learning what your reading preferences are. So if you are somebody who watches a lot of BookTube and you're only reading what BookTubers are sharing and talking about, it might be hard for you to figure out what you actually want to read. I would encourage you to read more genres and to find what genres you enjoy the most and read faster with. And so I feel like when you learn your reading preferences, like I really like to read fantasy romance, or I really like to read nonfiction memoirs, learning what your niche is will really help you to read more, because you'll be more excited to read those specific books. Also, in the same vein as that, finding your reading routine. Sometimes I think it's very hard to, and especially now that a lot of us are working from home, to like click off from work and, change over to this is reading time. So maybe, you get off of work at 5 and you say 5 to 6 is when I want to read because I have a whole hour before I want to start making dinner. But it's kind of hard to switch off from that work, I think, especially if you live in a small apartment. So maybe what you'll do instead is at 5 o'clock, you'll turn your computer off, you'll clean off your desk, you'll put everything away, and then you'll light a candle, you'll get, a nice blanket, you'll make sure you're nice and comfy and warm in your chair, in your bed, in your couch, and then starting reading. So really kind of finding a routine in that might help you flow better and read more. Other things that I think would be really helpful, trying new genres, again, to find what fits you, but also like if you're kind of an eclectic reader, maybe that will help you read more. And in the same kind of vein as that, rereading books. I know that sometimes we can get burnt out with reading and finding a new book can be hard. So returning to an old favorite is really fun and exciting. Some other things when it comes to like learning about your reading tastes and whatnot, find recommendations from trusted sources, podcasts, blogs, booktube, bookstagram, learning who has similar reading taste as you, which you can find out by comparing books that you've read and their ratings compared to yours, which will really help you read more. Because once you find that dedicated source that you click with, then you can get more recommendations from them, which will help you from that dreaded question of what to read next. And then finally, I want to talk about using your local library. Using your local library will help you connect with other readers. The staff at your local library can help you find recommendations for reading, help you connect to different authors that you've never heard about. A lot of like, even libraries just have a lot of resources like access to different databases that'll help you more with your reading. Some libraries might have services where they can select books for you. We're currently doing that at my library and I love it. So use your local library. So that is it for the reading habits tag and ways that I really hope will help you read more if that is what you want to do. I myself read about 100 books a year and I'm always trying to read just a little bit more than I did last year. So I definitely use these tips and tricks for my own reading, and I'm really hoping that something has sparked something in you to read more if that is what you want to do. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in a new video soon. Bye.